today because it's Friday and my hair is it's just insane. I have a Greek fro, I guess I would call it. So yes, we are live and it is Friday, as we said. Today I actually watched an interesting talk. It's actually one I've watched before, but it's by a scientist that I'm very intrigued by. His name is Dr. Rupert Sheldrake, and he is a very, I guess I want to say he's a very radical scientist in terms of his beliefs. He by no means follows the mainstream approach. And I say that because he's very interested in understanding or proving his hypotheses, which is one, that telepathy does exist and it is a real thing, and two, that our world, or like I guess I would say, our universe operates in a very, very significantly different way than we think it does. Instead of more of this mechanical approach, there's actually a field that guides the evolution of ourselves and of the galaxy, of everything. And so I wanted to go into this, and kind of I want to start with talking about his talk, because this actually was a talk that was on it was a TED talk, and it was actually banned. And so here's just like a picture of Rupert. So this TED talk was banned. It was titled "The Science Delusion," and he basically went into talking about he labels 10 dogmas that are currently present within the mainstream perspective of what science is. And he defines the science delusion as the belief that science already understands the nature of reality in principle, leaving any of the details to be filled in. And he goes on to say that there's basically there's two ways of perceiving science. The first way is that it's a method of inquiry in terms of it being based on reason, evidence, hypotheses, collective investigation. And then the second way that you can look at science is that it's a belief system or a worldview. And he said this latter perspective, the belief system, the worldview, has come to a place where it's actually inhibiting and restricting the free inquiry of anything that would, I guess I would say, oppose these current beliefs. And so he goes into talking about these different dogmatic perspectives that I'm sure you'll be very familiar with. Let me just read them off here. So the first dogmatic perspective is, number one, is that nature is mechanical or machine-like. The universe, animals, and plants and ourselves are machines or lumbering robots with brains that are like genetically programmed computers. Second dogma is that matter is unconscious, and the whole universe is made up of unconscious matter. So basically, they're saying that everything, every molecule in the world is like unconscious. So ultimately, we're unconscious. Dogma 3: the laws of nature are fixed and they will never change. Dogma 4: the total amount of matter and energy is always the same. It never changes except at the beginning, which is the Big Bang, which they talk about how so Terence McKenna, he has this quote. He said, and it's right here. I wrote it down. It's he's like, modern science is based on the principle, give us one free miracle and we'll explain the rest. And so that one miracle that they're talking about is the appearance of matter and energy in the universe, just this spontaneous appearance of matter and energy in the world, with like these specific laws that are governing it, all of that in this one single instance, and then we can explain the rest of it after that point. But after this one Big Bang, then we can explain everything else. But we just can't explain that Big Bang part. So that's the fourth dogma. The fifth dogma is that nature is purposeless, that the evolutionary process has no purpose or direction whatsoever. Number 6 is that the biological heredity is material. that everything you inherit is in your genes, or epigenetic modifications of your genes, and that it's very material, which Rupert goes into explain his perspectives, which is that essentially, in a nutshell, that our biological heredity is actually much more than material, because of these fields that interact with us, and that he believes that like we are very much, especially when even in the womb, we're very much influenced by the fields around us and by the past habits that have occurred within a similar species in the past. And I'll go back into that in a second, but that was just a brief summary. But Dogma 7 is that memories are stored inside your brain as material traces. Dogma 8 is that your mind is inside your head. All your consciousness is the activity in your brain and nothing more. Dogma 9 is that psychic phenomena like telepathy is impossible. Your thoughts and intentions cannot have any effect at a distance because your mind is stored inside of your head. And then lastly, Dogma 10 is that mechanistic medicine is the only kind that really works. So basically, this is like the default dogmatic perspectives that like all educated people around the world believe, or most of them do believe or abide by. It's the basis of our educational systems, the National Health Service, the Medical Research Council, and governments around the world. And so basically, we have all these dogmas, and and they're considered dogmas because they're just accepted as like the truth, and so we just assume them to be true, and as they gain, they've gained popularity. We have these large populations of people who just assume these things to be true. Now, in this talk, Rupert goes on to talk about how there's a few things, a bunch of these dogmas that he can talk about, or that he's looked into, and he immediately found some discrepancies with them. And one of those being is, I believe it was Dogma 3. Dogma 3, that the laws of nature are fixed and will never change. He looked into a couple different aspects of this. He was actually looking into some records of the speed of the documented speed of light. Laboratories around the world are always they're recording the speed of light. They record it every year. I don't know how consistent it is, but it's at least once a year. And basically, there are records of all these different laboratories from around the world. Their records of what, it's like the number that they got for the speed of light each year. And so what he noticed as he went through these records over 100 years, he noticed that there were fluctuations in the change in this constant, which is the constant of light. We call it a constant. Speed of light is constant. It's supposed to never change. However, laboratories from all around the world were getting different numbers, and they were significantly different. And the most interesting part is that they were all changing in specific patterns. Like 1 year, there was a period of time when they were much lower, and there was a period of times where they were all much higher. And there was, the frequency of essentially all these laboratories were sharing like higher results or lower results, or right in the median. And so what they do in terms, it's called metrologists they study constants, and they are the ones that give us like the official constant, scientific constants. And so essentially, because of this was becoming an issue for them, they actually called it like one of the biggest embarrassments of science, that they have all these, that we have this number that's supposed to be a constant, yet we're getting all these different numbers, that are deviating in different ways. And so what they've done over time is they take all these numbers from all these labs and they average them all together until they have this one number. So essentially, they also redefined how we actually perceive, or what we call the speed of light. They redefined that as well, so that essentially, just to make it so that we can't that there can't be discrepancies anymore, and that even if there were, we wouldn't notice them because of how it's defined. So essentially what we've done is we've cleaned, like in terms of this instance, we've cleaned it up. It's like there was this quote unquote embarrassment, and they call it a he said when he had talked to this metrologist, he said that like, yeah, it was an embarrassment, and that like so he's like, how could this happen? Like, you know, it looks like it's been happening for a long time. How did this happen? Did they just like smudge the results? And so what he said, and let me look this up, he said, like, we don't like to use the words fudge. We like to use the word intellectual phase locking. So for any inaccurate recordings that happen, they call this intellectual phase locking, and essentially they just ignore those results and choose the ones that like fit the dogma, which is interesting. So he went into more of this. He even went into like how the numbers of gravity are actually the constant of gravity is also changing, and it's varied as much as 1.3% in recent years, and they call those errors as well. So his question is like, if are these constants really fluctuating, and if so, what does that mean about that, and why aren't scientists looking into that? Why aren't we seeing this as something that could be significant? And he says the reason for that is because of these dogmas that we've created for ourselves, these assumptions, we don't feel the need to give them any more attention. Like it's said and done, it's over with, you know. And he said he's saying that this is our biggest mistake. This is a huge deal, because when we make these assumptions, and essentially, one, we make it, there's no interest in exploring it, and so there's no money going to be putting into the research. Two, we make it a more of a social thing, where like if you believe that like gravity isn't a constant, then you're almost looked at as like an idiot, you know. Like suddenly there's this like, I guess it's like groupthink mentality where it's like if you don't believe this particular line of thought, then you're dumb, or like you're not relevant or credible. And so we move further and further away from what could be a truth that we're ignoring. And so it's a super interesting topic. So basically, Rupert Sheldrake has brought up, he has this he's famous for this specific hypothesis that he has, and it's called morphogenetic resonance and morphogenetic fields. And basically what I want to throw up the definition of morphogenetic fields here. Well, let's see, I don't know if I necessarily have that in particular, but what I do have is that so basically morphogenetic fields it's the concept that basically that we like that the world and the universe and everything within it operates from habitual patterns, and these habitual patterns are constantly evolving and changing, and basically these patterns or these habits are established through past behavior. And so basically, let me give you just like an instance of this. You may have heard of the 100th monkey effect before, the 100th monkey effect. If you haven't heard of it, let me explain what it means. Basically, in a group, this is something that's been studied before with monkeys or gorillas, and basically, or monkeys, gorillas, same thing. So basically, you have this group, this small community of, let's say, gorillas, and let's say about 20 gorillas, and basically every time a new gorilla is born, a little baby gorilla is born, that gorilla needs to be taught how to use particular tools in order to get food. So for instance, one of those tools is like grabbing a stick, sticking it in a hole, grabbing to get the ants out, and then eating those ants. That is one method that would have to be taught. What scientists have discovered is that there's this phenomenon where once this community grows to over 100 monkeys or gorillas, once it grows to over 100 gorillas, when a new gorilla, a baby gorilla, is born, it no longer has to learn that from its parents. It just intuitively knows it and discovers it immediately, because it's just kind of part of its instinctual knowing. And so scientists, like, knowing this, are just like, whoa, this is an interesting phenomenon. How is that? What does that mean for us? What is that? And so what Rupert Sheldrake says is that while we're in the womb, there's actually this morphogenetic field that we are connecting with. And so a baby, a baby, or like a fetus, a gorilla fetus inside the womb is connecting with this collective field of of this particular species, and is learning through this field, is learning these particular habitual processes, in which one of those is the concept of how to eat food, and so it just naturally, instinctually learns this, because there's you've built up this field, or there's enough individuals who have learned this particular process, and basically they're able to just pick it up, I guess through this field. They've done other studies with rats where if you're in a London laboratory and you teach rats this specific trick, and then you take another set of rats of the same species, let's say you're in America with those, and you teach them the same trick, it will be easier to teach the second batch in America, the American rats, how to do this trick, because the rats in London have already learned it, and they are basically, they've created this morphogenic field that understands this particular trick, and so these other set of rats can suddenly understand how to do this. And then if you bring a third group in like Australia, and you teach them the same trick, it becomes even easier. So they've done studies with this as well, and they found that there is a significant increase in the learning process as well. I like to, a very simple example of that is, have you ever seen like a baby playing around with your phone, your iPhone, or your iPad or something like that? It's like they understand it. It's like they already get it. Maybe not necessarily a baby, but babies are attracted to phones. I feel like every baby I've met is immediately goes for the phone. But a 2-year-old just understands how to use it. And my question for you guys, for myself, is did babies, if you were to give a baby an iPad in 1960, do you think that they would immediately know how to, or a 2 or 3-year-old, would they be able to, use it as efficiently as they are now? That's my question. I would be willing to bet that they can. And that's just through this collective field that Sheldrake is talking about. And so, what are the ramifications of this? Well, Sheldrake goes into this other concept that, science. It's one of the I had listed out one of the other dogmas, that memories are stored inside your brain, and that the dogma 8 was your mind is inside your head, and all your consciousness is the activity in your brain and nothing more. He goes on to say that your mental, that your mind is not specifically stored in your brain, that it is actually stored in a field. It's more of like a cloud, and that you are actually accessing much more than just what's inside of your brain. You're accessing the field outside of it. And he believes that when you actually look at something, you're actually projecting yourself outwards, and you're going there, and your field, your morphogenetic field, you're literally taking yourself there, and your morphogenetic field, you're connecting with information within that morphogenetic field, and you have access to that information. So he says that he believes that if you look at a star, you can actually travel light years there, and have access to information that is located within that field of awareness. And so this is obviously seen as pseudoscience right now. But what if it wasn't? What if there is something to that like if we explored, if we put more money into, if we put more thought and discussion into, and we experiment with it more, what if that was, what if that was true? And how would that change the way that we perceive the world around us, Yeah, in my opinion, it would prove that like telepathy is a thing. It's a real thing. It would prove that like we're much more connected. That the universe is interconnected. That and all people, things, plants, everything is working together in some way or another, and that it can all communicate with each other. The positive ramifications of this is that we realize that we should care more about our Earth, about plants, about other people, about our universe in general. Like that, it would essentially make everything much more relevant and not just this materialistic thing. Like this is me, and I'm gonna do whatever I want because I'm just a machine, and like I'm meaningless, and basically like like none of my what I do has no impact on the world around me. There's this separation there. So yeah, it's a fascinating topic. It's really interesting to me, and I think that the main reason I wanted to bring up Rupert is because I'm the type of person that really enjoys embracing just, I guess I want to say, weird thought, or like I like to embrace ideas that are out there and that could that are not scientifically based, that are like pseudoscience. I like to entertain those ideas because it's like, if you looked like 300 years back at like the scientific textbook, it is completely different from the scientific textbook we're working on today, that we're teaching today. Like, if I were to like 300 years ago be like bring that book forward, if I was 300 years ago, I was there, and I was like studying this textbook and talking about these things, like everyone would be like, yeah, you're right, Peter, you are right, and I support you, and I will pay $10 a month for your Patreon. That would be the case. But if I were to bring that book into the present time and start speaking about it, people would be like, you're an idiot, you're stupid, like that's wrong, what are you thinking, this or that, like blah blah blah. That's interesting. Now, if I were to take the book that I have today, the science book that I have today, and then I would go, 300 years in the future and start reading it, I have a very strong feeling that people would think I was an idiot, I was stupid, and I didn't know what I was talking about again. So with that in mind, it's hard for me to just accept that, and assume that all these, we're calling them dogmas today, so I'm going to call them all these dogmas are correct, and that there's things that are just going to be the truth. It's hard for me to think that, and it's hard for me to think that we're anywhere close to finding the truth. That science is about to figure it out. I don't think we're anywhere close to that. So, anyways, I think that's why. Excuse me. I think that's why. To me, pseudoscience is by no means irrelevant whatsoever. I think that basically it's just like, how are we, if we don't embrace pseudoscience as like something that could be real and useful and resourceful, if we see that, if we constantly see that as something that is undesirable, that's something that's unrealistic and dumb and like not credible, if that is our approach, then we're going to lock ourselves in to a limiting perspective that will not, essentially, ultimately not allow us to evolve, not allow us to get beyond the experience that we have adapted to, and just like it's like basically we'll have the same old experience that we're used to, and we won't go beyond that. And for me, it's like, any relationship that I've ever been in, I end the relationship whenever I know that there's no longer room for evolution. That's just kind of my rule. And if that's the case with humanity, it's like, I guess I have to end my relationship with humanity because I want to move forward. It's like I want to grow, I want to move forward. Like, don't you? And it's like, in order to move forward, you have to be crazy. You have to think radically, and you have to be so open to these people, especially people like Rupert Sheldrake, who has this talk that is banned on banned TED Talk, which is it's ridiculous that anything can get banned on TED. That's it's seriously insane that's actually a thing. It's just if we limit perspectives, we'll never have the full truth, because truth has many perspectives to it. There's many ways of seeing. Truth is not singular. It is holographic in terms of there are many parts and pieces that make up the whole, and that one little piece is not going to do it. There are many, many different ways of looking at it, and it's I always see truth is contradictive within itself. It is and it's not, and that's where the contradiction is. It's like fucking Schrodinger's cat, if you know what that is. It's a theoretical, I guess what I'd say, scientific study where it's there's a cat that is alive and dead at the same time, and that's essentially showing kind of this quantum physics perspective that an electron can exist and not exist at the same time, and it's just non-locally based. And so anyways, that's kind of a different topic, but it is the truth. That it is the truth of what we're talking about as well, whereas ideas can exist and not exist at the same time, and so there are greater perspectives that we have to, I guess I would say, embrace. And there is this grounded science that we have, and that's really great, and it's useful, and it's it serves as a foundation and a platform. But when we censor ideas, and we say that and when we make assumptions about things that we think we've already proven, that is I feel like that is a formula for disaster. There's a formula for limitation and de-evolution, and nothing that is anything that we want. We want movement. We want growth. We want expansion. That is in my opinion, that is the human. That is our desire. Being fulfilled means growing. When we're not growing, we will not feel fulfilled. That's just the bottom line. So, anyways, that's my rant for today. And if this is something you're interested in, definitely check it out. The talk is called The Science Delusion. You can find it on YouTube. Definitely check it out. It's 20 minutes, really easy watch. And if you want to look into Dr. Rupert Sheldrake, Sheldrake, look at his videos as well, because they're fascinating. They're absolutely phenomenal. I love his work, and he's just doing it all alone. It's he's just out there doing it and proving people wrong. It's really fascinating. So, anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed that. I hope you have a absolutely fantastic weekend. I will be back on Monday on here. I'll be streaming on my Twitch. It's actually twitch.tv/nextlifetv if you want to check that out. I play Hearthstone. It's a card game that I really enjoy. And so yeah, I hope y'all again enjoy yourselves, and peace and love.